Hey y'all, so I just wanted to introduce myself so you guys can kind of put the face with the person who runs the page. I also wanted to kind of give you an update on me as well as the reason for me starting this page. 2008, I had a brain tumor. I didn't know I had it. I was actually outside at a birthday party when I lost my vision. I thought I got overheated, went home, had a really bad headache from it, thought nothing of it. The next day at work, I completely lost feeling on the whole right side of my body. I was rushed to the ER where they found a brain tumor on the left side of the brain. Had it removed, didn't really have any issues or any long-term complications from that. Probably a few weeks later, I started having some symptoms that were kind of like MS. I started falling. I started dropping things out of my hands a lot. I couldn't remember even the simplest things that I have done for I can't tell you how long. I went and followed up with my doctor. They decided to do a spinal tap and run some labs. Those did come back elevated and abnormal. They did investigate it a little bit more when they were not able to really determine what was wrong with me here. In the DFW, Dallas area, we traveled to Arizona to the Mayo Clinic. They were able to diagnose me with neurosarcoidosis. I kind of knew, I guess, what I was up against. My mom already had sarcoidosis. It had been in her lungs. She had had it for years. My uncle had neurosarcoidosis, so I kind of already knew, I guess, what I was up against. It really didn't make it any easier, but I guess I kind of knew what I was about to go through. Shortly after the diagnoses, I started experiencing a lot of issues with my bowels and my intestines, and I started having issues with a lot of bleeding, and followed up with a GI doctor. They did a lot of testing, determined I had Crohn's. They started me on Remicade. We did Humira. We, of course, did 80 milligrams of prednisone. That's the go-to medication. When all of these were unsuccessful with slowing down the progress of the disease, they decided to do a complete colectomy. I had a complete colectomy done. I was 23 years old, and surprisingly, it was exactly a year after the brain surgery. I received an ostomy bag. You, I guess, have to remain positive. That's really what gets you through. There's a lot of things I can't control in life, but my attitude towards them is the only thing I can control. I improved with that, but I started having issues with a rash on my body. It would get to the point where I would bleed from scratching my skin so much. I, of course, went back to the doctor. They this time sent me to a hepatologist that deals with liver. She decided to do a biopsy. The first set of labs that she had just to check my liver enzymes were so elevated it was alarming. Past this point, I wasn't really on too much medication, and she didn't contribute the medication to being the cause of that. We did undergo a biopsy, and it was determined my autoimmune had spread to the liver. I have NASH in my large bile duct, which is non-alcoholic hepatitis, and in my small bile duct, I have PSC, which is sclerosing of the liver. There's not a cure. All we can pretty much do is just monitor. We have creams you can put on for the skin to help with the itching, which have steroids in them. The one thing you learn with steroids is the joy of weight gain with steroids. Steroids can be your best friend because they can put things in remission, but they can be your worst enemy because you sometimes feel like the Incredible Hulk. You feel like you can flip cars with them. You have to absolutely learn to laugh at yourself and really love yourself for who you are when you're on them, because your body definitely changes. And I had to definitely accept that. I followed up with all my doctors. For the most part, I was pretty stable. I would go off and on in the hospital for flares here and there. And then I started having issues with kidney pain. I was not quite sure the reason for it. My kidney counts were actually a little decreased. We followed up with a nephrologist, a kidney specialist, who determined I did have kidney disease. I did have stage 1 renal failure. It contributed mainly from the ostomy output. It was a very high functioning output from the ostomy. There's not too much you can do. Try to stay hydrated. We were able to find injections to slow my gut down some, and you pretty much just have to trial and error different things until you find something that's going to work. Recently, when I started having issues where I could go probably like 2 days without urinating, I wouldn't get an urge. I wouldn't know, that I would have to go. We just assumed it was from the kidney disease. But my kidney function wasn't terribly bad. We followed up with urology. They decided to do some testing. It was determined that my sarcoid had spread to my bladder. It no longer sends signals. My brain will no longer send signals to my bladder, letting it know it's full, it needs to be emptied, and so all the urine would just sit there. The only way I would know would, of course, be to the point where it would be so full, my kidneys would start to spasm, and I would have these very painful spasms. We decided to surgically go in and repair. So I did receive surgically a catheter that was placed in to help with that. I recently actually just went in to the hospital. I thought I had another blood clot. I was actually asleep, woke up from out of my sleep. I couldn't catch my breath. I had a lot of pain in my right leg. I thought possibly another blood clot. I went and got it checked out. They rolled out a blood clot. He decided to go ahead and run some, of course, cardiac labs, do an EKG and CT just to kind of rule that out. The EKG came back very abnormal. The CT came back abnormal. It did show that the lymph nodes around the heart, they were all enlarged. The EKG came back abnormal, and it did show infraction around the heart. The labs were abnormal. My troponin level was at a dangerously elevated level, to the point where the labs called him with a critical lab. So he came in, told me, of course, I was being admitted to the cardiac floor, met with the cardiologist, and it was determined the sarcoid had spread to the heart recently. It was devastating, and I think I had to get to the point where I had to learn that sometimes it's okay to just not be okay. And I was at that point, and I had to just let it out, let the anger out, let the hurt out, let the fear out, and just reevaluate it. I don't know what tomorrow holds, but one thing I know, I'm a fighter. I'm going to fight to the very end. There's a lot of things in life that I want to do, a lot of things in life that I love to do, and I still continue to do it until they tell me I can't. My next step from here, of course, is we're going to be applying to go to New York to Mount Sinai Hospital. They have a sarcoidosis clinic there. They are supposed to be one of the well-known physicians around the world who deal with this. And hopefully we'll find treatment there. Through all of this, I think I am more proud of myself at learning my strength. I am a lot stronger than I could have ever imagined. I originally got sick 2008. I was 22 years old. I am 32 years old now. Still here. In those 10 years, I have had 14 surgeries. Way too many hospitalizations to count even. But, I pulled through. They weren't sure so many times, if I was going to make it through so many things. But I guess that just shows you that God's will for my life does not measure up to the doctor's, will ultimately. I'm one of the millions of faces of sarcoidosis, and my prayer is that we get funding for more research. I want to be here. I want a future. I want to be married one day. I want to have kids. There's a lot of things, that I just don't want this disease to take from me. I still went back to school. I got my degree. I still work full time, work at a hospital actually, going back to school again to get another degree. And I just learned to never allow this disease to put limits to myself. I started this page in hoping to encourage others who are dealing with it or who have loved ones who are dealing with it. I would love to get ideas from others and encouragement from others, and ultimately just let somebody else know they're not alone. There are millions of us out there who are experiencing the same thing and understand and have bad days just like you, and we pull through it. And then there are those who aren't going to be here to see a cure, and we have to see them pass along the way. And it's hard because sometimes you think, am I going to be the next one? But I don't know. But I'm still here today, and I'm going to make the most of it. And until God's ready for me, I'm going to keep fighting with my hardest hit. So this is one of the millions of faces of sarcoidosis.